I'm Dr. Liz Stafford, and this is Primary Music in Conversation. My guest for this episode is Hilary Marsden from Ashdene Primary School in Cheshire. There is absolutely loads of music going on in this school, from singing assemblies to instrumental lessons. There's loads and loads for us to talk about. So let's just crack straight in with this final episode of Primary Music in Conversation. So welcome, Hilary, to Primary Music in Conversation. Could you just please introduce yourself for our listeners?
Yes, so I teach primary music in a school in Wilmslow, which is Cheshire East. I'm also a musician. I play woodwind instruments and piano as well. So being a musician is a big part of my life and teaching primary music.
Fabulous. And did you come to teaching from music, or did you go to teaching and then come back round to being in charge of music?
Well, I was a musician before becoming a music teacher. That was always kind of my dream job. But I knew I always wanted to teach music. So yeah, I came to teaching in my late 20s, really, which was nice having worked in the music industry. And I've always been in bands, so that's a large part of my life. And it's nice to share that with the children, you know.
Yeah, it's so important, I think, isn't it, when you've got that authentic experience, because then you can really demonstrate that music is actually a career and it's something that children can aspire to do.
Yes, definitely. Yeah. And you hope you can inspire them in some way and at least show them how much music in your life can be fun and a great hobby. You know, even if it's not a career, it's a great thing to have, isn't it? Especially nowadays.
Yes, absolutely, really important for all kinds of things, mental health and well-being and all those things. And I suppose when we're talking about primary schools, a career as a professional musician is it's quite a long way off for, for most of our pupils. But they do, often children will tell you very strongly what they want to be when they grow up. So it's nice to kind of plant those seeds, I think, as young as possible, that it is a possible career.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I'd agree with that.
So it's Ashdene Primary, isn't it, that where you
Yeah.
are music subject lead, and you're not full time there, are you? You're
No, 3.5 days. I do.
And are you managing to teach the whole school music in that amount of time?
Well, it tends to be 2 out of 3 terms because it's tricky, isn't it, to fit 7 year groups. Um,
Mm,
Afternoons, you tend to teach your foundation subjects in the afternoon, don't you? So it's a bit tricky. So the children will have 2 terms out of 3, so it'll kind of rotate. But we do singing assembly for both key stages each week, so I will see all the children at least all year round.
brilliant. And how long have you been at that school?
5.5 years now.
Oh, wow. So you know the children really, really well then if you're teaching them year on year.
Yeah, which is nice. Yeah, makes a big difference, doesn't it, knowing the children?
Yeah, I always think that's a really big benefit actually of being like a music specialist, because you don't have that thing that class teachers have at the beginning of every year, but they have to get to know everybody and understand their little quirks and stuff because you did that the previous year or the year before or the year before that.
Yeah, and I always see myself as privileged. I mean, it takes time, doesn't it, when you only see them once a week? But I do feel lucky that I know all the children in the school, so that's a nice position to be in.
Hmm. And you've got early years in your school, haven't you?
Yes, yeah.
And so
Um,
how does that work from the music perspective? Are you teaching the music to early years, or are they doing it as part of continuous provision?
yeah, well, they're currently teaching it as part of provision, but I usually do. I'll do some teaching later on in the year. That they'll be working towards the nativity now. But I'm actually teaching the preschool, there's a small preschool on the same site. So that's quite nice as well. It's teaching 2 and 3 year olds. And they have siblings, of course, at Ashdene. So that's lovely to get to
And is
know.
that something that you felt like well prepared to do, or is it something that you've had to sort of with the younger ages like work out as you go along?
Yeah, a little bit, yeah. But they're very sweet and it's good fun. They're very good and keen. So it's just 2 half-hour sessions, which it's great. But you actually need a lot of material, don't you, in that time? Because everything's just 2 or 3 minutes long. You
Yeah.
know, and it's very physical, isn't it? It's very full on. But I do like it. Very different from year 6, that's for sure.
Yeah, yeah, and but what kind of privileged position to be in? Because obviously, if you stay long enough, you'll see those children through from the age of 2 all the way up to the age of 11.
Yeah.
And how lovely for you, and how lovely for them as well to have like you might be the one constant thing that go runs all the way through their school life.
Yeah, it's nice now knowing the year 6s because I think I've known them for so many years now. It's lovely, really. Yeah, it does make a big difference, doesn't it, when you know the children and you know the names. It's a lot of well, not battle, but you know what I mean. It's a large part of teaching. It helps when I've done supply and things. It's very difficult when you don't know the children and they know that you don't know the names. So, it's hard. You feel like I don't know. But yeah, it makes life a lot easier to know them.
Yeah, but also a big job to put all that curriculum together, I guess. So, are you using a scheme, or have you created your own curriculum? How's that all working?
Yeah, it is a big job, and no, we don't use a scheme. So yes, I've had to create it, which is a lot of work, and it gets, altered and tailored each year as well. Um, but it's nice to take inspiration. There's so much out there, but it's trying to get that progression, isn't it? But having been teaching music a while now, that's got easier, from the years all the way up to year 6. It's just tricky making sure it's diverse as well, isn't it? You want them to have access to all these different genres and styles and ways of learning music, either whether it's Western classical traditions or music technology. Some children will take to that way more than learning an instrument in that kind of way, won't they? So yeah, it's giving them all a range of experiences, and I think some schools are doing that better than others. It's hard though, isn't it? There's a lot of challenges for schools to deliver music, high quality music education, you know.
Absolutely, yeah. And I mean, you're a little bit ahead because obviously you've got that musical background, so that does make it easier. Although I'm a firm believer that people who are generalists can teach music really, really well. But obviously, it gives you an advantage if you come from that kind of musical background to start off with, because you're not having to learn quite so much on the job.
Yeah.
So and I guess you've had to make some tough decisions because you're not teaching full years, are you? If you're only teaching like 2 terms for each year group, has that kind of, do you feel like that's narrowed your curriculum, or have you managed to kind of find a way to still keep all that breadth in, even though they're not getting a full year's worth of lessons?
Yeah, it is a bit tricky. I do try to. Um, I'm often, changing things. Or like I've got a new scheme for year 4, doing African djembe work, something completely different. And yeah, it is tricky trying to make sure you're giving them a really diverse range, like I say. But it's kind of a work in progress, always to develop and change and improve, really. Yeah,
Yeah.
and you're always discovering new things out there, aren't you, to add to what you do. So
I think that's one of the real hazards of being a music teacher is that there's always something new on the horizon, and I think it's very easy for us to kind of be like, oh, I'm bored by that, or that's old hat, we've done that to death, and forget that actually the children haven't done that, and they might still find it really interesting. But like,
yeah,
if it's lost your interest, then you're on to the next thing, and then you're like, oh, I'm going to redesign this entire thing that perhaps you only did for your own benefit. I used to do that all the
yeah,
time.
yeah, I know it's tricky, isn't it? And just trying to find things that if it's a backing track or whatever it may be that, they will think is cool and take to, it's quite hard, particularly because I'm teaching a lot of woodwind instruments, like we do the J sax and an instrument called the Dude, which is like a junior clarinet, and the J sax is a junior saxophone. And they're really, they're a lot, they're budget friendly and they're accessible because they're smaller and they're both in the key of C, so it's easier. And the dude is much less complicated than a clarinet, but it's just trying to find, well, like I say, really good quality accompaniment and backing tracks that the children will take to and enjoy playing, once you've taught them a piece of music. That can be a challenge, but yeah, it's good challenges, isn't it?
So talk me through what instruments, sort of kind of started this discussion already, but I know you're offering a lot of instruments, and some of them are quite unusual. So talk me through like how that works, who's learning to play what and for how long.
Yeah. So at the end of year one, they learn for the one term, they do the tin whistle, which is quite tricky actually for year one. Very well. So they do that, and then the recorder in year two, ukulele, and the dude in year three. Then in year four, they have another go at no, they do the J sax, sorry. No, year four they do the dude again and J sax, and year five do J sax and ukulele, then year six guitar and clarinet. So the woodwind instruments kind of develop, through the school. Because it's getting that progression, isn't it, that I think can be challenging for schools. And we noticed, are we really achieving that a few years ago when the PTA funded all these instruments? And obviously, with woodwind being my kind of forte, that was an area we could develop and progress. But we still wanted to give them a chance on other, stringed instruments and technology as well, using GarageBand, and the children use Audacity a little bit as well throughout the school. So yeah, they get quite a mixture of
Yeah,
instruments.
it sounds like it. And so, did the progression? Okay, I don't. I mean, I know of the dude and the J sax, and obviously the clarinet. But does the progression work quite well from those kind of technically through? Is that why you've done them in that order?
Yes, yeah, because they're learning the notes on the stave, they're learning to read music, and the range of notes, of course, increases as they get to year six, and playing different time signatures and doing duets and more composing, the expectations of what they can compose as they move through, and because they know more notes and different types of notes, whether it's your minims and semi-breeze and all that. It's just greater depth once they're at year six.
So it sounds like the kind of instrumental learning is very tied up with the notation
Yeah,
learning as well.
it
Yeah.
is when they do. Yeah, and they'll learn to read tab with the guitar and the ukulele as well, and a lot of chords. So yeah, it's a nice mixture for them.
And do you find they take to that quite well if they're learning like two different notation systems, or would you say that was
Yeah,
kind of confusing? Or
I think generally they do. Yeah, and I'm careful to when particularly with the guitar and ukulele, I'll color code chords and things, and we'll have a lot of the scaffolding in place to help them. And I think I've ended up there's stickers on all of the ukuleles now to make it easier. Know where to put the fingers. It does help, and then any resources on my PowerPoints, the colors match up. And you're starting from the real basics of, A minor and C are just one fingered chords. So very simple, but you can be playing a song very quickly and singing it. So very accessible. The ukulele's good, really. I know a lot of people don't like it, but the size of it's good for year three, I think, as well. And a lot of children want to play the guitar, so I think it's a nice starting point, really.
does it transfer well across? Because obviously, quite often, like primary schools just stick to ukulele, and then maybe they have a go at guitar, like when they get to year seven. I've not come across a school, certainly not for this, where you've actually done that transition within the primary from the ukulele to the guitar. Does that how does that work? Because obviously more strings and things going on with the guitar.
Yeah, more complicated. Well, yeah, I mean, I think I was, yeah, I made a mistake before. They do actually start guitar in year five, so they do the J sax and the guitar, which is quite nice because then they revisit guitar in year six. So yeah, I mean, I think because they're upper key stage two, they seem to cope very well with it, and it's just keeping things really simple again. and reminding them of the strings. And if you've got your diagrams on your PowerPoints and flashcards and all these resources, it does help, you know.
I think
It
sometimes
can
we
be,
underestimate children, don't we? We think,
yeah,
oh, that'll be too difficult. But actually, if you get the right kind of scaffolding, it's amazing what
yeah,
children can do.
absolutely. Although having said that, some have stayed on ukulele, or even if they're struggling with the fine motor skills, they'll play chime bars, or somebody's often broken their arm, or they can't hold the guitar, so you have to make these changes. But yeah, they do well, and it's groupings as well. You can have your higher abilities, can't you, positioned, and it's really helpful, especially if you're on your own. It's tricky, isn't it, as a music teacher, but you can use your children to be supporting their peers whilst you're teaching at the front. And guitar's good because you're stood opposite them. They can see, can't they, what you're doing, and we've got these visualizers in the classroom, so they're brilliant because I'll just put my guitar neck underneath it, or I'll put the camera on my face so they can see my embouchure for clarinet or whatever it is I'm playing, and then pictures and having those. It's just having them on every slide, that consistency, and those visuals really help, don't they, for staff? So,
So I'm interested that it seems like your instruments are straddling year groups. And often, again, when I talk to schools, it tends to be like, oh, we do recorder in year two, and then we do, djembe in year three. But you're kind of, it seems like you're starting in one year and then continuing it into the next year. What was the kind of rationale for doing it that way?
again, I think progression, I mean, that came from the senior leadership team. Our head teacher is an Ofsted inspector. So um, she, from what she experiences, I think it came really from her thinking it's all very well, lots of schools say, oh, we're doing this and we're doing that, but where's the progression? By spending a little bit longer because goes very quickly, doesn't it? A term. I mean, we do teaching blocks of 6 weeks, so
Mhm.
they have 12 weeks on an instrument. So if you're revisiting that again, you can really take it further. And they do remember, like you say, you can underestimate what children retain. And we do retrieval practice in every subject, in every lesson as well. So that is your chance to keep revisiting things and reminding them of what chord C looks like, or a note B on the stave, or whatever it is.
Mm.
So retrieval practice is good for that, especially
I
because we only
think
get 2 terms rather than three. It can have a big.
yeah, I was just going to say, yeah, that must be like a really, really important when you've got a little bit of a kind of gap between learning. And I
Mm,
think, like, it sounds like you're doing lots of instruments, but in fact, because it's strategic, because obviously one of the things that Ofsted is worried about is like schools that do a different instrument every single year, and so obviously you've got your dudes, you've got your J sax, you've got your clarinet, and you're like, oh my goodness, that's three instruments, but actually it's basically like all one. I mean, I know they're all different instruments, but you know what I mean, because it's all woodwind, because it's all the same embouchure, because it's the same fingering. Like it's a really nice way to get that variety and to get the breadth, and the kids must be thinking, wow, I can play all of these instruments, but actually progression wise you're working on the same set of skills, aren't you? Ukulele and guitar, you're working on the same skills, and then your woodwind, it's all the same thing as well. So I think that's a really clever way to get that sort of illusion of the breadth, but with keeping that kind of progressive core in
mm.
the middle.
Yeah, it's nice. I mean, the once you get to clarinet in year 6, it's quite a jump. And it's a very complicated instrument. So, it was a couple of lessons of taking a long time. How do we put the instrument together? What does it look like? But putting that time in really helps. And it's tricky being on your own because you can't spend an hour changing reeds, and
Yeah.
it's understanding, like, once you've broken that reed, that it's broken, it's not going to work. Well, they can work with a chip or a break, but they've done well, and I think I've got better year on year because I'm having to face the same challenges and deal with them in different ways, and
Hmm.
that do well now. It's quite hard, and any music teacher will tell you it sounds like it's sometimes a flock of Canada geese when you're trying to play. 30 children blowing a clarinet or a dude. I mean, it's squeaking. Sometimes it's like, you have to be very patient as a music teacher. And I think sort of noise level acceptance is different to class teachers.
Oh, 100%. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
What
And
we
do you know
can
what I
tolerate
think?
is different.
I think that's why sometimes teachers struggle with music because they feel like they haven't got control of the class because it's noisy. But
Oh,
actually, it's meant to be noisy. And if,
no,
if if that's how you sort of, if that's the core of your behavior management is like managing the noise, that's where you're going to have a problem instantly in music because you just have to let the whole of that go.
no, it is stressful, isn't it, having noise? I mean, when I'm teaching a lesson that isn't music, I get very stressed if the general chit chat is at a level I'm not comfortable with. So, I get that, and it's hard for children, isn't it? Um, that can be a real challenge as well. I mean, I've spent a long time in year six on the clarinet, just trying to teach them how to blow it softly, and they can do it. They can do it, but it's time and recording them playing and then listening back and reviewing the progress. It's amazing what they can do really and
Mm.
how they can respond, but it's a lot of time and patience, isn't it?
There's no more violent sound than a squeak from a clarinet. Like
Yeah,
it goes right through you, doesn't it?
quite brutal, isn't it? I know. Definitely. And even with the doors closed, teachers will say, "Oh, we could hear you playing the clarinet this afternoon," like from miles away at a different part of the school. But having like children have those ear defenders as well, don't they? So things like that, a lot of children are sensitive to noise. It's quite
Yeah.
surprising, isn't it? Um, yeah, when I was at school, we didn't have those kinds of things. It's nice now that there's a lot more in place to support children.
Yeah, I think you're totally right, and I think it's a shame. Like we've seen some stuff in the press recently about like politicians being rude about things like ear defenders, and you're like, why would you want to take that? There must have been children in the 80s and 90s suffering their way through school, being totally overstimulated and overwhelmed. Why on earth? Now we've got the technology to stop that. Would you go, oh, that shouldn't be happening? It's very short-sighted and it's very non-inclusive, I think people sometimes hark back to their own school days and go, oh, we had none of that. But we did, but people just suffered in silence. That's
Yeah, it's not a good thing. I know. It
no.
wasn't okay. Just people struggling quietly. Yeah, I know. It's quite surprising when people like make comments like that in the position of power in this day and age, isn't it? Shocking, really, but here we
Well, fortunately, when you're teaching music, nobody really watches what you're doing anyway. So, like, we can all just continue to use the ear defenders. Nobody's coming to see us. Nobody's going to find out. So we just do what we think is best.
exactly. We muddle through, don't we, as best we can.
So, have you? Obviously, you've got like the instruments sound like they're the kind of core of your curriculum anyway. But have you got extracurricular, like instrumental lessons and ensembles and things happening as well?
Yeah, so we have some Perrys who come in to teach guitar and ukulele and woodwind at the moment. And we have a keyboard club as well, Music Squad, the company who come in. They do two clubs now after school on Wednesdays and Thursdays, which is nice for children who want to learn the piano. And so there's only 10 in that group. And then I do a choir for each key stage as well. And I tend to do a key stage, I kind of rotate key stage one or two with a music club as well, a term each year. So yeah, we try but we only have our lessons in lunch times at the moment, rather than children coming out of lessons, unfortunately. But you do what you can, don't you?
Yeah, so I suppose that limits the number of children that can be taken on then, really, if you've only got a short amount of time. But
Yeah.
it is a real concern, and I often have chats with colleagues about this that you have to be really sure if you're letting children come out of curriculum time, you have to be really sure that what they're going to is going to be at least equal to, if not better than, what they're leaving behind. And I think sometimes schools don't think of that, or they don't kind of, it's just accepted. And I'm not saying that you shouldn't come out of curriculum time, because I absolutely think if that's the best way to do it, we should do it. But sometimes, I think schools maybe don't go through that thought process of actually, if we're taking them away from the curriculum, what is it that they're doing, and is that comparable? And in the vast majority of cases, you want to honour your small group lessons with a peripatetic teacher absolutely will have educational value and be comparable, if not better, than what they would have been doing in the classroom. But sometimes, if it's more of a kind of club-based thing, or if it's more of a kind of fun-based activity, you wonder whether that's the best use of
Yeah.
time.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, I guess you've avoided all of those things, or maybe you had that thought process, and that's why you've ended up just being in lunchtimes for your lessons.
Yeah, I mean, it's not my call really on that. If
Mhm.
it was up to me, I think I would allow lessons to take place throughout the day, certainly in afternoons, because I think it is highly beneficial, especially now for well-being
Mm,
for our children. But it's just, but then on the other side of that, I do appreciate that schools are under huge pressure to teach the curriculum in a very limited time, really. And of course, they can't miss PE, can they? They have to do that twice a week. And yeah, there's just not enough hours in the day.
yeah, yeah.
Difficult.
Once you've gone, well, I want them to be in all the English lessons and all the maths lessons, and they've got to be
Yeah.
in PE. Then that, doesn't leave you with very much time left at all, does it?
No, it's very difficult really because you have all your other interventions as well taking
Mm,
place, assemblies and things that children need. So like literacy goals and things like that. So it's always hard for music, isn't it? Because I do feel that our subject is the one that gets pushed to one side often in a lot of schools, or just undervalued, when a lot of children really would benefit greatly from an amazing music education, and those opportunities, especially in your deprived areas.
mm.
But it's the same problems, isn't it, that we always have really in music.
Yeah, so I feel like I've been talking about the same kind of three or four issues for my entire career, and I'm like, oh, I haven't made it better. But it's an expensive subject as well, isn't it? And I think that is the crux of it, isn't it? It's not just about the time, and it's not about the availability of staff or anything like that. In the end, it comes down to money, in terms of the resources, in terms of the training that you need, even in terms of stuff like, is there a suitable space in your school where you can actually do music effectively? And we all know that schools are really pushed with their budgets at the moment. It doesn't look like, we're suddenly going to get some wild renaissance of funding where we can all start building music rooms and, buying a full orchestral set of instruments.
I know.
I'm interested actually, as because you've got lots of instruments. You mentioned your PTA, so do they do quite a lot of fundraising for you in terms of music?
Yeah, well, they did, like I say, they bought all these instruments a few years ago, so that it was hundreds and hundreds of pounds. They do raise a lot of funds for the school, so the school's very lucky in that sense. But it's a very affluent area, so the children are very lucky, really. Um, and the school were able to pay for an immersive room as well that we have, but we don't have a music room. I would love one. I keep asking, but it's very difficult, isn't it, for schools to cover all these different things. We do have a very small space that the parents can teach in, but it's not a classroom, it's a very small room.
But it's nice that they've got somewhere designated that they can go to, because
Yeah,
sometimes they're in a corridor, or
yeah.
yeah.
It's not a little cupboard with no window, it's nice. Yeah, because I used to do Perry teaching, and the places that you would find yourself in a little corner teaching whatever, it's quite difficult, isn't it? But Perry's doing an amazing job going to all these schools and managing all these situations.
Hmm.
They were
It's a
really,
really undervalued job, actually,
very
being
much.
a parent. I think, yeah, unless you've done it yourself, you don't quite realise the challenge of like working in multiple schools who all have slightly different ways of doing everything, and there's all these children, and yeah, it's quite a job.
Yeah, it's very challenging. Like they do an amazing job, and that's another thing where the pay isn't great. It hasn't really increased since I was doing it, what, 10 years ago or something. So, yeah, they do an incredible job.
So, with all this instrumental kind of focus, and obviously you've got your choirs and your singing assemblies and stuff, when children go on to secondary school, do you have many links with local secondary schools? Do you ever get any feedback about, how well prepared they think your children are for Key Stage 3? How's that whole transition thing working?
Yeah, we've had positive feedback. I mean, a lot of them go to Wilmslow High mainly, um, but it's trying to. I mean, that's an area that I definitely need to work on improving really those links and making sure, the children who you've had in choir are going to continue singing and, making sure that everybody's aware of who plays what instrument and the talent of the children because I often see them and I say, oh, are you singing in the choir? And then no, they're kind of lost interest and you think, oh, it's such a shame, isn't it, when that happens? But then they're so busy. I mean, high school, it's just, yeah, they're managing all these subjects, aren't they? And high
Yeah, and it
school,
depends. It
and
depends what kind of group you get in with in the first few weeks, doesn't it, as to whether you end up pursuing certain things. If you happen to find, a few musical people who are all interested in joining the choir, then fine. But if none of your friends are interested in joining the choir, you will rapidly decide that you're not interested in that either.
I know it is tricky with peer pressure, isn't it? Definitely. Yeah.
So, although obviously you sound like you're very well resourced, I'm going to ask you the question that I ask everybody else, which is what's on your wish list? Like, what would you like to do next with music in your school?
Well, it's always have a music room, really, a designated space to make music and for the children. Because I think as well, when a subject like music, you want that lovely calm space where they can be creative and that it's a special place that they go to. Um, I think it's really important now more than ever, really, to have that. And when you have your own space, like whenever I've had a classroom, I always have a big space to stand and play in, but some tables as well, but at the back. And of course, I love really going to town on my displays, which is really important for music because there's a lot, isn't there? And you all your elements of music are interrelated dimensions of music, we call it now, but all that on your wall and inspirational stuff for the children, they need that in music too, don't they? And I do try and put bits and pieces up in rooms, but it is quite challenging moving from class to class, and tables are in the way and chairs, and you don't have your own space. Do you using other people's computer? And I do find that tricky, especially with 30 guitars, in a small classroom with desks and chairs. So always having a classroom, a designated space is always the dream, really. Because I have had that. I worked in Dubai for 2 years and had an amazing classroom that was perfectly round. And any resources that I needed, we just had. And it was amazing. But yeah, you're very privileged if you have a music room these days, I think, in primary schools, definitely.
Yes, definitely, definitely. And we've all been through the pain of like carting everything around with you from one class to the next. Yeah, I mean, during COVID, we were doing. I look back on it now and I go, what was I thinking? We did glockenspiels, and not only did I have to move 30 glockenspiels by myself because obviously you don't want too many people to be touching things in between classes, but I also had to like sanitize them all like in the corridor on the way. like, like, what a mad life I lead.
Yeah. Sometimes the things that you realize you're doing and you just think, it's crazy, isn't it? But you just do them anyway. Yeah, I mean that was crazy, the sanitizing of everything.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, I remember
And,
teaching music with one of those perspex screens
yeah.
in front of me, and that was just so bizarre, like stood behind this plastic screen. It just felt really weird.
Yeah. Did you manage to carry on with your woodwind during that period, or did you have to do
Well,
something?
that was before, I mean, I'd only just arrived at Ashdene
Mhm,
literally during lockdown, really. It was the March 2020, so I didn't know the school and I hadn't yet come up with this curriculum.
mhm.
So obviously we were limited to being able to sing and things, weren't we? Yeah, it was quite bizarre, really.
Yeah, it's the only time in my life that I've told children off for singing. Just, oh no, you can't do that.
Yeah.
It's, again, crazy to think back on it, but
I
I
know.
suppose in a way that's quite good timing, because you were able to start fresh then when everything went back to normal. Then you were like, right, this is what we're going to do and this is what music's going to look like. So you're not trying to recreate something that you did before COVID, but you've like had a fresh start. And
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, and because the school obviously wanted to invest in a specialist, it was nice that it was right. So you can do music, and we'll give some money to the subject to spend, and so it was great. Really, I'm very very lucky because I've taught in a lot of schools, and when you've sort of searching cupboards for a few broken instruments and there's not enough to go round, and it's really hard, isn't it? A tambourine with a hole in it, things, you know. Um, but yeah, I mean, you work with what you've got, don't you? But we are very, very lucky at Ashdene. If only all schools had the same, because it should be fair, shouldn't it, for all children, wherever they are.
what a way to end. That is a perfect quote to end
Yeah.
on. Let's So, I totally, totally agree with you. We absolutely should make it more equitable and more fair, and hopefully that will happen at some stage, somehow in the
Fingers
future.
crossed.
Fingers crossed. Well, thank you so much for your time, Hilary. It sounds like everything at Ashdene is going marvellously, and I'm sure it will go from strength to strength. So, thank you for your time today, and thanks for talking to me on Primary Music in Conversation.
You're welcome. Thanks very much.
I really enjoyed that chat with Hilary. Was really fascinated in the kind of decisions that had been made around that sort of instrumental approach to the curriculum that has all that breadth in it with all the different instruments, but because they've been chosen to progress from one to the other, still gives you the kind of core that you need. So they're working on the same skills year on year on year, developing them, rather than chopping and changing between different instrumental techniques, I suppose. I think it sounds like a really strong model, and given that they have to have that little break, so they're only doing 2 terms of music and then having a little gap just because of how the timetable works. I think that's a really sensible choice. The fact that they've chosen to pick these instruments that all relate to each other and then straddle them over the year groups as well, so that they're constantly kind of returning to and refining those skills, in order, I guess, that little gap that they have, the off term, isn't impacting as much as it might do in terms of progression. And really lovely to hear that they've got the support of their PTA, and were able to kind of raise the money to make those musical aspirations happen. As Hilary said, it's not the same everywhere, and it's a real shame. It's a real shame that we even have to go to those lengths, isn't it? That we have to ask our PTA to go and raise money to buy what is essential equipment for our schools. And perhaps one day we will see a government recognising that schools actually need a lot more money so that every child everywhere can have the same experience. I hope you've enjoyed not only that episode, but the whole of this season. If you haven't listened to all the episodes yet, you can obviously catch up wherever you get your podcasts. Remember, you can also catch up on season 1 as well. And we are now in the process of scheduling our recordings for season 3. We've still got a few opportunities to get involved with that. So if you would like to come and talk to me about music in your school, please do get in touch. You can find us on socials at Music Ed Solution. You can also join our mailing list, which you will find linked in the podcast notes or under the video on YouTube. And you can go to our website and fill in the contact form, which is musiceducationsolutions.co.uk. We would love to hear from you. And you know what? I would really love to hear from some schools where you've only just started on your music journey. I guess it's obvious really that we are tending to hear from people who've been quite well established, who've been at the schools for quite a long time, who've got things just how they want them, because obviously it would take a brave person to come, onto the internet and talk about music they've just started in their school. But I want to find those brave people, because what I don't want is for other schools to be listening and going, wow, everyone's so far ahead of me, I'm never going to get there. There are loads of schools in the position where they've just started their music journey, or they're in the middle of a music journey, or perhaps they had great music and then they lost their specialist, or COVID got in the way, or budgetary priorities got changed. I would really love to hear from some schools who have had some challenges and are in the process of maybe redesigning what you're doing or overcoming those challenges, because I think that is really useful for other schools to learn from. Other schools in the same position maybe haven't got so much music or haven't had so much music. This is where we're starting. These are the baby steps we're taking. This is how you can do it too. So if you fit the bill for that, I'd be particularly interested to hear from you. But of course, I still want to hear from schools who have fantastic music programs that are very well established as well. I would love to hear from schools who are outside England, because we are very England heavy at the moment. So if you are in another area of the UK, or if you are in an international school, again, please get in touch. But also, if you are in an English school, I still will have a chat with you. I'm not ruling you out, but certainly for next season would be great to have a mixture of schools from lots of different countries and on lots of different stages of their musical journey. Primary Music in Conversation is presented by Dr. Liz Stafford, edited by Kay Charlton, and produced by Music Education Solutions.